Hi, it's me again. It's time for the first session of the first virtual workshop for Innovative Approaches to Drug Safety, and the title is Pharmacovigilance, Time to Grow Up. I've been involved in drug safety in some capacity for the past 25 years of my career. So let me tell you a little story. When I was a young surgeon in training, I was very well aware that medications that I prescribed to my patients were capable of causing side effects. I knew that if I was careless and I didn't prescribe a drug properly, there could be dangerous or even fatal consequences. I certainly saw many occasions where medications did not lead to the outcome I've been hoping for, or even created a complication. Medicine went hand in hand with surgery as the primary tools of my arsenal. After all, I couldn't perform surgery without concomitantly administering antibiotics. And when a patient awoke after procedure, he received narcotics for pain, antiemetics, stool softeners, and H2 blockers to prevent ulcers. All through the night, while I was on duty, I would stand at the bedside in the ICU, dialing the pressors up and down, knowing I could very easily make a mistake that could inadvertently cause a patient's demise. At times, it kind of felt like I had the power of God in my hands. And on many occasions, these drugs saved lives. But quite often, they were ineffective. And at times, drugs made my patients worse off. Never, in those early years, did anyone ever instruct me to report those side effects or those failures. Never, in pharmacology class, did my instructors, some of whom were the most brilliant pharmacologists of the 20th century, ever tell me that manufacturers should know about adverse reactions. In fact, for that matter, the pharmacology curriculum never covered the drug development process and how a drug safety profile is determined. I wasn't ignorant, but I was like every other physician training in the late 20th century America. And folks, now 30 years later, things haven't changed much. Most physicians practice the way they were trained. If their teachers didn't think some administrative procedure wasn't important, they wouldn't think so either. At some point in their careers, physicians become aware that adverse drug events should be reported. But that is a time-consuming process that doesn't net any revenue for the effort it requires, nor does it provide a teachable moment. In the busy practice of modern-day American medicine, these responsibilities are quickly overlooked. At the conclusion of their careers, most American doctors have never once reported an adverse event. That, folks, is the fundamental reason why our job, surveillance of medicinal products, is so difficult. So now let's talk about consumers, the other major source of adverse drug events reported to the authorities. It's a fact that most consumers, like these fine folks that you'll find at Walmart, don't know who manufactures the medicine they take. And most medicine prescribed is generic and thus manufactured by a company whose name they aren't familiar with. So how easy do we make it for them to report an adverse drug event without a doctor's help? Well, let me show you how. This is a typical package you get when you pick up your prescription at a pharmacy. A little bag containing the medication to which is attached a document, your personal prescription information. Well, apparently the first thing most people do when they get home is to take out the medicine and throw the paper and the bag into the trash. But if you were so inclined to read the paper, it'll give you all the important information you'll need to know. Or maybe not. Besides identifying the medication, it instructs you what to tell your doctor before you take the drug, like your allergies and what medical conditions you have. But shouldn't your doctor know that before prescribing you the drug? It also tells you how to use the medication. Cautions, precautions, possible side effects to tell your doctor about, a suggestion to call your doctor for questions or advice about side effects. Another suggestion is that you may call the FDA at a toll-free number to report your side effects. In fact, this form tells you the exact same thing in two places. Call the FDA, a government agency, but not the manufacturer. In fact, nowhere is it ever suggested that you should call the manufacturer. Instead, it's always the government. But then again, you can call your doctor, but as I told you earlier, it's highly unlikely the doctor will ever call or contact the government or the manufacturer about your adverse drug event. If you have in fact chucked out the bag and the personal prescription information, well, you can always find it on the package or on the bottle, right? Wrong. Not on the side, not on the front, not on the bottle. Not convinced by this example? Here are some other bottles, labels, and packages from other products. Do you see any information about how to report an adverse drug event to the manufacturer or even the FDA? Nowhere. Oh wait, there's a folded up piece of paper inside the little box. What could this be? An old copy of the Magna Carta? Maybe the Declaration of Independence? No, it's the package insert. And it's a very big package insert. In fact, it's 60 by 42 centimeters, a poster-sized package insert that's got writing on it that's about size 4 font. And where does it inform you to contact the manufacturer about a side effect? Well, if you guessed nowhere, you are right. But over here on this border, once again, call your doctor or call the government. Now, if you're like me and you don't like calling the government, you can always look them up on the internet. FDA.gov. Pretty obvious URL. But what do you do when you get there? Well, you have to scroll all the way down to the bottom of the FDA's homepage just to find a link that says MedWatch Safety Alerts. Not report your side effect or report an adverse drug event, just MedWatch Safety Alerts. Not particularly obvious. But if you're bright and you click on the MedWatch Safety Alerts, you get the MedWatch FDA Safety Information and Adverse Event Reporting Form. And right there, as you can see on the box in the lower left, a red box with small letters, Report a Problem. Ta-da! Not in bold or large font, but it says Report a Problem. So you click on that and you get the screen in the upper right. The MedWatch Voluntary Reporting Form. There's a lot of information here and a lot of instructions. But if you're smart, you'll pick up the fact that what you'll have to do is click on the consumer picture. That's the picture with a lot of smiling people, none of whom appear to be suffering from an adverse drug event. They're all smiling, but click on them. Finally, this will lead you to a form. A form with several pages, lots of check boxes, and a space of no more than 4,000 characters to describe what happened to you when you had your adverse drug event. But at least you can electronically submit this incident to the FDA. But wait, let's go back to the MedWatch page down on the lower left. Over on the left it says in very small fonts, reporting serious problems to the FDA. That'll take you to a MedWatch 3500B. That's a 4-page PDF that's requiring a great deal of handwritten entry, as you can see by all the blue fields. So if you're so inclined to report your event to the agency, you're going to have to do a lot of it in handwriting. And lo and behold, at the bottom of the 4th page, to add insult to injury, we see that the form can't be submitted electronically, only faxed or mailed to the agency. So the FDA is still relying on 18th, 19th, and 20th century technology. Not surprised, huh? Well, we still think that you ought to be able to tell the manufacturer about your adverse drug event. If you're so inclined to do that, go to the internet, look up the manufacturer of the product you think caused your side effect. Well, you'll be pretty hard-pressed to find anyone who's going to make it obvious on their website. If you go over to the Pfizer site, they'll ask you, ever wonder how drugs are named? If you go to the Astellas website, they'll tell you how honored they are to be named the top 10 company in Working Mother's list of 100 best companies. And if you go to a generic pharmaceutical company's website, like AmerisourceBergen, they want you to get to know their CEO, Steve Collis. Pretty helpful, huh? Back in 2018, the AHRQ published Patient Safety Issues in Primary Care Are Real. And in that document, They tell us that an estimated 160 million medication errors occur each year in primary care, and that 1 in 9 emergency department admissions are related to an adverse drug event. Let's look at the adverse drug event reports in the FDA FAERS database for 2018. If 1 in 9 emergency department visits are attributable to an adverse drug event, and there are 160 million medication errors in primary care, then why does the FDA only know about 2.2 million of them in 2018? If this number represents only 1 or as many as 10% of all adverse drug events, then does that mean that there are as many as 220 million that occur every year? That means that the FDA is getting a minuscule amount of useful safety data. Of the 2.2 million cases, over half, or 1.2 million, are expedited, so the data that the FDA has is seriously skewed to serious, unexpected adverse drug events. There are 197,000 cases of fatal adverse drug reactions, and 1.2 million of the cases in the database are serious events by criteria. Again, the data is skewed towards serious adverse drug events. If you're one of those people who feel that it's not important to report non-serious adverse drug events for post-marketed products, the people at Johnson & Johnson will tell you otherwise. They've just been ordered to pay a man $8 billion because he developed gynecomastia after taking Risperdal. You could be sure that gynecomastia was never life-threatening and never resulted in a hospitalization. Adverse drug events in hospitalized patients exact a very high economic toll. Adverse drug events are the largest single category of adverse events in hospitalized patients, accounting for 19% of all injuries. 380 to 450,000 preventable adverse drug events occur annually in U.S. hospitals, according to the Institute of Medicine. And the incremental cost of an adverse drug event back in 1997 was estimated to be nearly $6,000. According to Becker's Hospital Review, reported adverse drug reaction costs in 2013 totaled about $4.7 billion. If you consider unreported adverse drug reactions as well, it's suspected that the true costs amount to about $25 billion. There are 148,000 hospital admissions or readmissions every year in the United States as a result of adverse drug reactions. So what sort of conclusions can we reach from this data? Well, if there's 90 to 99% underreporting and selective reporting of adverse drug events, then our awareness and ability to respond to risks associated with marketed products is seriously impeded. The alerting systems, such as labels and package inserts, aren't designed to capture the consumer's attention or even be helpful. Reporting tools are awkward, inefficient, cumbersome, and can lead to human error and underreporting. Consumers, patients, and physicians who are responsible for reporting most of the adverse events receive no real-time feedback for their efforts. The current system for collecting adverse drug events relies entirely on the altruistic behavior of consumers and healthcare providers, who are largely uninformed that reporting these incidents is an important responsibility, are largely unaware of how to report an adverse drug event, are given little awareness by government or industry, and are provided with poor tools to report. Hence, the current pharmacovigilance reporting system does not optimally reduce risk and liability to stakeholders beyond satisfying administrative compliance requirements. Patients and consumers are unnecessarily exposed to persistent, avoidable risks of injury, death, disability, and associated liabilities due to suboptimal processes. So what do we do about this crisis? Well, the first solution is use common sense. The pharmaceutical industry and pharmacovigilance professionals must own up to the problem and actively address it before the healthcare costs and the liabilities may become too much to bear. They have to take an active role in improving the education of consumers and healthcare providers. They need to improve the tools that facilitate reporting. The pharmaceutical industry and the healthcare community must adopt changes on their own before the government imposes a solution on them.